What's up, champs? Welcome to another episode of the Short Shifts Fantasy Hockey Podcast, brought to you by Keeping Karlsson. I'm your host, Louis Ezekiel. Joining me tonight, my pal and yours, Elizabeth. How are you doing on this fine Tuesday evening, a busy evening? Not as busy as some Tuesdays. Obviously, last time we had a lot more action, but a more spread out week this week. A little better for streaming, definitely.
Absolutely, a much better week. And shout out to Derek, who covered for us last week. We were both a little under the weather and couldn't make it. And he took on that frenzy and did a great job. So thank you so much.
Yes, right on. Thank you very much, Derek. Much needed. We are Short Shifts. If you haven't heard us before, we are the twice weekly check-in between the ginormous Sunday evening episodes of Keeping Karlsson, designed just to keep you completely up to date with fantasy news, takes, and analysis all through the fantasy hockey season. So let's just jump right into it. We got plenty to talk about here, even though it's only been, we got through most of the 7 o'clock games here by the time we're recording. So we've got some information here, but the late games we haven't got. But yeah, a good chunk on Monday and Tuesday. And one thing that we noticed were new faces in new places on Power Play 1. Elizabeth, why don't you take us through our first new Power Play 1 participant?
Yes, the first guy up is Arvidsson over in Boston. We're seeing some new lines, and I think this is a good shift for Boston. We're seeing Geeky, Zaka, Pasternak, McAvoy kind of holding down the fort and just bringing Arvidsson in as that extra person who's going to help hopefully turn this around in Boston and keep the momentum going. They've won the last 2 games, but they did have a bit of a losing streak there in October. With this group, though, I'm going to be honest, I don't see him as the potential goal producer, if you will, but I do think that if he can find some rhythm in here, we're going to see a couple of assists in his future, and hopefully he gets to stay up on this power play. Last year, he was in Edmonton. He didn't get a lot of power play time. It's very limited. They have that overloaded power play 1. But he did get 3 power play points while being there, so something to look forward to. His last really solid performance, I had to look this up because I was curious, was in LA in the 2022-23 season. He had 25 points, power play points, and only 10 of those were goals. So definitely a good playmaker there. If you're looking for some assists, I think he might be able to just capitalize on this new placement.
Yeah, all right. So yeah, that was the guy that I went ahead and added. I figured if that power play was going to score against my Sorokin, maybe I could get in on some of those points. I think Boston did win that one in the shootout. And as you said, a goal at even strength. How about Isaac Rosen over in Buffalo, playing his second game of the year today? If you were sorting your skaters by points per game, he was there at the top because he provided 7.5 fantasy points, at least in Cupful, in his first game with a goal and some peripherals. So Power Play 1 was Rosen with the usual suspects of Tuck, Doan, Tage Thompson, and Dahlin. He had 55 points in 61 AHL games last year, which is not bad. I think, usually for star power, you want to see it over a point per game, but he's pretty close. He had 1 point in 8 NHL games. With Benson on the shelf now, and obviously, they've really taken some hits up front. It does seem like the coaches maybe saw something in Rosen, or at least saw an opportunity for him to show his stuff a little bit more. He had another assist during the game today. Not necessarily someone to rush out and grab, but maybe one to keep an eye on if he continues to have that kind of deployment.
He's definitely interesting. I like this. It's a coaching staff that's saying we've got a lot of injured players. What can we do? And bringing in a young guy and letting him kind of experience that at a higher level and put a little bit of pressure on him and see how he does. But he's still playing with some really solid people in there. I mean, it's going to be Thompson. It's going to be Tuck that I expect to get in front of the net. But I really think this is a huge opportunity for him to show them what they've got.
All right. And then maybe the most exciting offensively so far is our new face in Pittsburgh. Tell us a little bit about Ben Kindel.
Yes, we've got Ben Kindel. He's also the youngest that we're seeing on this power play. I needed to point that out because he's only 18. So this is really exciting for him. And if you're a fan of him, seeing him come up early, he's had 5 points in 12 games. So that's really exciting for such a young player. He's getting this opportunity on the power play, and he's playing with some really strong veterans over there in Pittsburgh, right? We've got Crosby, Rust, Malkin, Erik Karlsson on that power play. It's really nice to see. I do think it will be hard for him to break into a top 6 role anytime soon. So I do think he might still hang out on that third line for a while, but really good, exciting. Seeing his minutes go up. He was averaging 12 to 14 minutes. He got 20 the other night. Very exciting.
All right. So kind of like Elon gets his one ask for Brian during the mega show for a ranking. This seems like an outstanding place to do a little ranking of our own. So if you are looking at these 3 guys, they're sitting in free agency for you. Who is most attractive to you? Who do you think you are going to go after?
I am attracted to the brand new shiny thing. So I am going with Ben Kindel in this case. I think he is exciting. I think he's getting a really great opportunity. I really like that power play to begin with. I have a lot of faith in it. So just adding him into the mix, I think he's got a really strong opportunity there. Whereas I feel like maybe some of the other 2, you're not going to quite see that. Rosen and Buffalo, I think that's a short-term thing, but I love that the coaching staff are there for him. So he's definitely my second place. They're putting a lot of faith in him. But as soon as we start to see some people return from injury, I just feel like that's going to fall apart pretty quickly for him, unfortunately. And I like Arvidsson. I really do. I was really hoping that he would gel in Edmonton and it would work. And I'm kind of giving him that same feeling in Boston where I'm hoping it works, but I'm just not sure that I'm a believer yet. I really need to see more from him. It's not quite there for me just yet. He's had some really good momentum. I like it. He got the goal tonight. I just need more, and I'm not really sure what that more is. I might have to pass on him and be proven wrong later.
All right. Well, yeah, we're going to have to disagree here a little bit because I'm putting Arvidsson at the top of my list. I put my money where my mouth is because I did, in fact, make that swap today. I still, thanks to injuries, was hanging out with Toivo Teravainen when a guy we're going to talk about in a little bit is a much more appealing option to pick up in Chicago. So yeah, I swapped him out and Arvidsson in, got rewarded with that goal and 6 shots today. I love that he went with the opportunity, putting rubber on the net. That is the stuff you want to see from Arvidsson. He was a volume shooter guy. That was one of the reasons why Elon obviously had an eye for him when he was at his best. I know you went for Kindel, your new buddy, make new friends. Very good, but keep the old. One is silver, like Kindel, but the other is gold and black, like the Bruins jerseys, and I want Arvidsson to be my guy. I will put Kindel second. Like you said, I know that Arvidsson's spot could be threatened when Elias Lindholm comes back, but I'm going to let that be a problem for Lewis down the road. I've got plenty of people on injured reserve, as I know you do too, so some of these guys are going to have to get rotated out anyway, but I like him at least in the short term. And yeah, like I said, I went right for it. Yeah, Kindel second. Again, I think that power play is quite exciting. They've been playing well. And Rosen last just because, Kindel is fighting his way up the lineup and Rosen is climbing the lineup because so many folks are out. And like you say, they will be coming back. So just a little bit of a difference. I'm moving Arvidsson from that last place to the top, but I'm keeping Kindel and Rosen in the same order as you. All right. Couple other news items. I guess since we were talking about Kindel, we can jump over to Pittsburgh for a minute. We got some kind of late news. I know it was too late for some of the Jari owners to react, which is a bummer. But Achari, Jari, and Brazzari, I'm sorry, that's Justin Brazeau, were placed on, various stages of injury. This, does provide some opportunities. Brazeau was just on an incredible run, 12 points in 12 games from line 2, very little power play time on ice. So that's a bummer for him because, those hot streaks, they can be, obviously derailed by that injury. But he was showing Boston that maybe they should have had a little more faith in him. It was pretty interesting. As far as Arturs Shilovs goes, you might be thinking, let's run out and grab him. He's going to be getting a bunch of starts for Pittsburgh, but maybe you want to hold your horses on that one. because there is someone waiting in the wings. Can you tell us a little bit about this is the AHL goalie of the month of October. Am I right there? So tell us about this guy. Who is the other person who is threatening Shilov's lair here?
Yes, we've got Miroshov waiting in the wings. I did look up how to pronounce that, and I have already butchered it. So please do look up that spelling. It's Murashov, and I am butchering it as per usual. We're going to have to start a clock, and I'm going to have to start donating for every time I butcher a name. But he is coming up. He's looking really good. He's 5-1 for his 6 starts this year already. He's got 1.68 goals against average, which is huge when you look at our 2 reigning Pittsburgh goalies, with Shilov's at 2.66 goals against average and Jari sitting at 2.6 goals against average. So really exciting news here. He's got a higher save percentage. And yes, I know we're talking AHL numbers, but he's going to move up and he's going to be hungry and he's got something to prove. And I think there is a place here for these goalies to have a bit of a push and pull here and see who can hold that net a little bit longer than the other one. And we have a back-to-back coming up, so you know he's going to get a shot if Jari stays out for the weekend.
For sure. Yeah, I think that's going to be a really interesting one. Yeah, I would not be rushing out to grab to either one. I think the play is to watch game day tweets, or if you know you're going to have a spot, whichever day the back-to-back he plays, maybe give it an opportunity. Sometimes those guys in those first starts when they come out, just have another level of focus. They really want to show what they got. So that could be a cool opportunity. Of course, I'm sure for every one of those stories where they rise to the occasion, there's one where it's like, ooh, the NHL, pretty tough. Maybe I should take it, they can take some lumps too. A little bit of breaking news here. Legendary Sunday show whipping boy Steven Stamkos has broken through to tie the Nashville-Minnesota game with a second remaining. So he obviously was listening and was not happy to hear that he was waiver fodder. I don't think this changes the outlook at all, but nice to see him get a little bit of a bounce after I'm sure a lot of people went ahead and dropped him. All right. Another, question that we've kind of had through the start of the season has been trying to get some clarity on the power play 1 defenseman situation in San Jose. Obviously Klingberg's injuries have not helped things, legendary Band-Aid boy. But we did today get some very certain terms. Coach says Klingberg is the guy at power play 1. He says it's why he was brought in. That is going to be his spot while he is healthy. So if you went ahead and took the plunge, well done, because you're getting some confirmation that, yes, indeed, if you're getting a John Klingberg, it's probably, it's like a Tyson Berry a while ago. This is a guy who's going to run your power play 1 and, maybe not be relied on a whole ton elsewhere. A Shane Gostisbehere type as well. No shade. Obviously, they play the game a lot better than me, but, just that type, that archetype. So just a little bit of clarity there. We were talking about Boston a minute ago, and we did see some interesting things with the even strength lines. We've seen Marat Husnudinov stuck to pasta in a third wheel the last few games. He had a nifty goal on Tuesday. So that might be a guy to keep an eye on as well. Knowing that he's not getting that top power play deployment, would you look at Husnudinov over any of, you said, Kindel, Rosen, and Arvidsson?
I don't think so. I have to be honest. I'm a huge Boston fan, not as huge as my Oilers, of course. And I'm just struggling to get excited about some of these lines. So I'm happy about a shift. I'm happy seeing some of the change up that we're seeing with these lines. But I'm struggling to want to draft them. Sometimes a player can be really good on ice and they are putting in all the work, hard plays, and you love to see it happening live when you're watching. But then you look at the underlying numbers for your fantasy team and it's just not matching up. I'm hoping that's not the case here. I'm hoping it does come through. He keeps going with those cool goals that we saw. But I just am struggling to get excited, and that's making me hesitant with the Boston Bruins.
Yeah, I think you take the guy who's on the power play with Pastrnak first and foremost, even if he's playing with him at even strength. I like that power play opportunity. And, Arvidsson is a guy who can make some things happen at a wide variety of situations on the ice, so that kind of adds to his versatility. One last thing here, I was thinking about what the guys were saying on the Big Sunday show about Ovi and how he's kind of cooked, and it might be time to think about moving on from him. And I will say, I certainly didn't draft him thinking that he was going to do a repeat of last year. I imagine he is taking a bit of a victory lap. But he's a guy who has his pride. I think I don't think about him, wanting to come back and play if he's going to, look like garbage, or he certainly is going to want to hear people talking about how he, looks slow and looks old and isn't getting it. And I was looking into the power play a little bit, because obviously you're talking about how this is an area where, he struggled to make an impact. And, the top group for the Washington power play has only been together 19% of the power play minutes. And there are 7 total combinations that have at least a 5% share of the available power play time. To put that in perspective, in Toronto, the top group has 47% of the time, and then 10% is that top group with Michelli in for Nylander when Nylander was out of power play 1. And they have 4 total combinations with a 5% share or more. Boston, similar, about 57% for that top group. So, Washington has not had a ton of time to kind of, get their bearings. We saw them, a couple years ago. I think Elon was talking about how, it was a very slow start and it ended up being okay, even if the start of the season was really dismal. They were trying to shoehorn the husk of Nicholas Backstrom into center when, Ovi should have been working on his chemistry with Strome. And, even last year, things, didn't start really fast. I think it was several games before he got his first goal from his office. He had one that was like a tap in near the net. So we've seen this a couple times where it takes them a while to warm up. They're talking about maybe sending out some trade offers. I think that this is a power play that has the potential to get it together. They've got plenty of skilled players up there. Whether they are, going 3 forwards or 4 forwards, I should say there was another 10 or so percent of, the big 3 forwards and then 2 defensemen. But even that, I think, is a little bit more of a change than just swapping a forward in and out. Long story short, I think that you can hang in there with Ovi until he at least shows some signs of life before you start to offer him. I think offering him right now when he is at his lowest is not, if he keeps playing poorly, how much less is he really going to sell for right now, right? So hang in there, see if they can't put something together on the power play. And I think that's when you make the offer. If you are super desperate, if you need the wins now, I get it. But that's my thought on the Ovi thing is I don't know that I would be trying to offload him until he at least is, breaking through on the power play a little bit, getting some consistency with some line mates without all these injuries.
This is definitely a case where looking at those underlying numbers makes a huge difference in perspective. Lewis, you mentioned how low the percentage of time that top group is playing together. And I think that's really important because a lot of times we talk about just being on that line can make all the difference. But if that line's not sticking together, if it's changing constantly, that really does change the way the chemistry works. It changes how they're building up. And I think we're starting to kind of see some of that. Hopefully with Ovi, he is going to bring it back around. He, like you said, a very passionate player. I love watching him play when he is not doing so good because I like to see those passionate players get really into it and go out there and do really cool moves that you might not have seen if they weren't annoyed at the game, we'll say. And so I think that's a really good call out. I will say, I'm really impressed with this Washington team. I, like many other people, thought they might kind of take a break. Ovi's hit his mark. He's doing his thing, but there's a lot of excitement on the team and I'm buying into the Washington love. I don't know if it's just because we spend all our time talking about it together, Lewis, but I'm buying into it. You've sold me on it at least.
All right. Right on. Well, I'm hanging in there for a bit longer, and again, this is, I'm doing this, with my roster. This is a guy that I'm holding on to. So I hope it'll get a little bit better for us. And I don't know, I might be a ride or die this season. We'll see how it goes. All right. We're going to take a quick break here. When we get back, we're going to talk about some hot and cold streaks and we're going to play a little game. All right, you are listening to Short Shifts.
The NBA season tips off, and so does DraftKings' newest fantasy game. DraftKings Pick-6 is the easiest way to play for big wins, with every possession giving you a shot at real money. Here's how to play. Just pick more or less on 2 or more stats and unlock the upside every game brings. Pick-6 is available in Texas, California, Missouri, and more. New DraftKings customers get $50 in bonus picks with just a $5 entry on your first pick set. Don't just watch basketball. Cash in. Download the DraftKings Pick-6 app now and use code THPN. That's code THPN. Play just $5, get $50 in Pick-6 bonus picks. Make the call, ride the upside in partnership with DraftKings Pick-6. The crown is yours. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. In Connecticut, must be 18 plus. Age and eligibility restrictions vary by jurisdiction. Pick-6 not available everywhere, including New York and Ontario. Void where prohibited. 1 per new customer. Bonus awarded as non-withdrawable Pick-6 bonus picks that expire in 14 days. Limited time offer. See terms at pick6.draftkings.com/promos. The holidays are here, and that means it's the most wonderful time of the year to save with Rakuten. Rakuten, use them to stack cash back at your favorite stores on top of holiday sales. That's saving on savings. With Rakuten, you can get cash back on gifts for everyone on your list. From toys for the kids to kitchen gear for the person who loves to cook to electronics for everyone. You can even save on something for yourself. Just shop the stores you love and cash back is automatically added to your account. And you can choose to get paid via Interac, e-transfer, PayPal, or check. Join for free today and get a new member bonus after minimum qualifying purchases. Just go to Rakuten.ca, download the app, or install the browser extension. That's Rakuten. Spells Rakuten. Terms and conditions apply.
Welcome back to Short Shifts. All right, we promised some hot and cold streaks. Let's talk about one of the hottest players moving up in the percent owned on Yahoo. Just 21% owned, but 19% was ads on Monday. Of course, the excellent Streamagami schedule helps him. Andre Burakovsky, relatively newly minted line mate of Connor Bedard and Powerplay 1 participant, cannibalizing all those Toivo Teravainen minutes. He has 6 points in the last 4 games, which coincides with the 4 games he's spent on Power Play 1. Like we said, playing with Bedard, the area that we thought would be the most valuable. I know Frank Nazar made a big push, great Michigan boy, at the start of the season to really be the guy you wanted to have, but he's cooled off a little bit and things are regressing towards the mean a bit with Bedard's skills. The minutes have been kind of varied between 14 to 21 minutes, but he obviously is a nice option. You'll be hearing this Wednesday morning if you listen when it comes out. So you'll still be able to get a Wednesday, Friday, Sunday from Burakovsky if he's kicking around in your league, but don't wait too long because, again, big percent added yesterday as a lot of people scrambled to grab him for that Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Sunday Streamagami. But check your lineups. I had a lot of days. I was able to go with only 2 defensemen, and I don't have someone sitting out this week until Saturday. So I've got a long time to get an injury or make a swap here. With the games more spread out, it can really be advantageous for you. But yeah, Burakovsky, really nice option, I think. I would put him ahead of any of the folks we talked about in the first half of the show. And for what it's worth, I added him last week when it was clear that I was defeated. So I was thinking that way already.
I have to agree with you on this one, Lewis. He is very hot right now. It's very exciting. He's on that 68-point pace. But for those of you who care a little bit more about his peripherals, these do also seem to be trending up. I mean, from Seattle, we know that Seattle is maybe just not quite as a physical of a team as Chicago, but we're definitely starting to see even those numbers go up. So if you do start to worry about the points or the shots on goal, he's making up some of that in the hits and blocks for you as well, which is really nice. Both getting goals and assists. This is really a nice way to get a player late or in the season. You're not drafting him. You're picking him up. You're picking him up early and getting a great week to test him out on.
All right. On the other end of the spectrum here, we got a cold streak. This is a player you have on your roster, and man, we were looking at this. This is a tough one, right? Because the cold streak is horrible for Owen Tippett. 1 assist in the last 7 games, despite 19 shots, which is not bad, not quite 3 a game. What do we do with this guy? I know you're holding on to him, at least so far. What's the move here?
You know what? The more we've talked about this, the more I am questioning why I held on to him last week. I was in a fairly tight matchup. I, was looking at what I could do, and I still held on to him. And I don't know why after getting into these numbers. And this is just a reminder to everybody that you don't have to be into the numbers all the time. But when you get into them, sometimes you'll really question yourself. And, you can go with that gut. And I'm going with my gut, and I'm holding out hope that he is going to turn this cold streak around. I still think that he's got a lot of potential. We're playing with Dvorak and Zegras. I do feel like there should still be a bit of a Zegras bump. I know that everybody's worried about how he's doing in Philly, but I just think it's coming. It's going to come. It's going to turn around, and I want to still have Tippett there as long as I can. But truthfully, this is something I'm going to be keeping a very close eye on now as I go forward. If I'm in any tight matchups, there's a good chance that he gets dropped on a weekend if needed.
So this was a guy that I wanted to draft because I thought it was pretty interesting. And, like you say, Zegras is going off and Tippett is missing out on it. I did not look at his individual points percentage on Natural Stat Trick today, but that might be an interesting investigation. My hunch would be that it's quite low, especially the last, these 7 games where he's just been on this drought. He had been playing power play too, but he played nearly 5 minutes of top power play today. That top power play isn't, the world's strongest. It doesn't have maybe the names that you would expect, but it played, 60% about of the power play minutes, with, Cates and Brink. But, it does make it hard to kind of get rid of him. He's still shooting. He's getting big minutes. I think I'm kind of with you, and maybe it's just because I wanted to draft him and I wasn't able to. I think I would still hold on to Tippett a little longer. If he drops back down to that second power play, I say drop him, and I think you watch Game Day Tweets. They did, I believe, pull off a win today. It was a crazy back-and-forth game with Montreal that featured both goalies having ratios at certain points that were just really horrifying, like saves to goals allowed. But in any case, I think I hold on a little longer with Tippett just because 5 minutes of power play time. He's still shooting and getting no reward for it. He's out there with Zegras, who is over a point per game. I think it'll come, and I think you got to give it a little bit of time here. One more item on the special teams. Oliver Ekman-Larsson moved up to the top power play. So it's Morgan to second power play, OEL up to the top. Great timing, of course, because I just dropped him. I'm wondering if I need to put a bid on him tomorrow to try to get him back. It really wrecks my plan of trying to go through the week with 2 defensemen that I was very excited about. So I don't know. We'll see here. We'll see what happens. The power play in Toronto has never been especially generous to any of the defensemen who have manned the point. It worked better, obviously. They decided when they had Marner to operate from that spot. So I wouldn't necessarily expect huge things. He gives you, he gives you some periffs. There's a shot, about a hit, about a block a game. And could luck into some points on that power play. I wouldn't be getting super excited, but if your defensive depth is not so good and you want to grab someone who, has the potential to operate that top power play for a month, maybe, that's about as long as I see it lasting. That's like the upside. Then it might be worth an ad, but a few bad showings or give up a shorthanded goal and it could be flipped way faster.
Very quickly in Toronto. And you called it right. They have been very much known for running that 5 forwards. And so I feel like it's just we're just testing the waters every time here. We're trying to find what works in Toronto still. There's that gap left by Marner, as you mentioned, and they're just looking to make it work. So if this does start to trend the other way, Lewis might feel bad about dropping him, but I don't know that I'm rushing out to grab him tomorrow. Like you said, this week is pretty good. You might be sitting someone on Saturday, but you're probably okay the rest of the week. And if you're okay, I don't love just getting one shot or one block. I want to see a little bit more from my players. I want to see higher production. So I'm very much like you. I've already dropped him. I need to let it go, but I'm definitely watching in the rearview mirror to see how it's going.
You might want to give him a chance just points wise, being able to get him. But the peripheral's not great. And, his best power play quarterbacking time, I imagine, is behind him back in Arizona. So, just a little update there. All right, last little bit before we go, we talked about wanting to play a game. And what I thought would be kind of fun is, first off, I gave this game a name, but, in classic, well-organized, lots of executive function fashion, I didn't really lay out the rules or parameters in any particular way. So mostly we were working off the name that I came up with. But my idea was I want to find some players who should have each other's percent owned on Yahoo. I know you have a slightly different interpretation, and I look forward to hearing it. And I think having multiple perspectives and ways of thinking is always really outstanding. It's the teacher in me. So I look forward to hearing your interpretation. But so obviously this is a bit of a hot and cold streak piece as well. But I thought, I'll find some relatively low percentage guys so that we're working with actionable people on the fringes and see if they should swap their percent owned. So here's my pitch. I think I was looking at this hot streak from Jordan Eberle. He is having a nice little run right now. Also, you might have picked him up for the Monday, Wednesday games. But, we always think about Seattle as being kind of a boring 50-50 team where the offense is really spread out. But Eberle has been cashing in here lately. And people are noticing as well. Actually, it's really been a pretty solid scoring all through the season. He only has 3 games where he has not managed to score a point, 10 points in 12 total games. And, playing some pretty big minutes between 17 and 21 minutes a night with, the top unit, how you want to define top in Seattle is obviously variable, but had a goal and an assist against Chicago on Monday night, goes up against San Jose and St. Louis on Wednesday and Friday. Not exactly, defensive powerhouses. Could be a good option for him playing, some big minutes for a team that we usually think of as being a little more egalitarian in handing out the minutes. Who I hear you asking, who should Eberle with his 10% owned on Yahoo be swapped with? Who is too widely owned? Well, that is Pavel Buchnevich, all the way up at 37% owned. So a 20% gap between the two. I like the Buchnevich comparison because he also plays on kind of an obnoxious spread the wealth team, although during the time Robert Thomas was down, there was not a ton of wealth to spread. And people like Jordan Kyrou were kind of getting left with the dregs, at least as far as top 6 companions go. But yeah, I'm looking at them as a pair who should switch. Buchnevich has been pretty cold here. Yeah, Buchnevich has nothing to show for his last 5 games. No points in there. 11 shots over those 5 games, so just a hair over 2 a game. Giving you a few hits in there, but just really nothing to show. And kind of, he's been in that same band of minutes, 17 to 21. I think if you are holding on to Pavel Buchnevich, 6 points in 13 games, when you could have Jordan Eberle at 10 points in 12 and on a nice little streak. I would think about going out there and making that swap. Maybe the name value for Buchnevich is keeping him higher up on your list. But to me, I see them as being pretty interchangeable, and why not take the one who is performing and leaving behind the one that is on a nasty cold streak, 5 straight games, like I said, and also playing for a team that's playing kind of wounded right now. They're kind of struggling.
I see where you're coming from, Lewis. I do. I do think that Jordan Eberle is an interesting one, but I know we always struggle with these Seattle players, right? We really want a strong top line, but we end up with like a really strong top 6. And I think maybe he's proving that that's a good thing for him. Like you said, 10 points in 12 games. That's really good to start the season. You like to see it. I was surprised he was only 10% owned as well when I looked into this, but he can be very up and down. And I think that's what's causing people to have a little bit of hesitation on him. But if I had a 3 or 4 game week where I could fit him in, I absolutely could see rostering him. Out of those 3 or 4 games, I would expect at least 2 good games out of him. But obviously, that up and down is always going to be scary. You might have a week where it's just not coming together for him, or he's not getting the minutes in Seattle, and that's scary. Buchnevich, his last point was October 25th, and it's November 4th when we're recording this. That is a long time to go without a point and to still be rostered that highly in fantasy. I'm not sure if these are really deep leagues that are keeping him or what, but sometimes that name recognition pays off. I was one of the people who had Olofsson the other day and actually had him in the lineup, and it was just one of those things. I set my line quick and didn't really think about that I had just picked him up as a streamer. So you might be keeping Buchnevich, like you said, for that name recognition, which is fun, but definitely something you can probably cut ties with and move on from. And you can probably pick him up if he starts to heat up again. That lowly rostered, I mean, he's available in most leagues.
That was an impressive way to work in that you got Olofsson and didn't have him on the bench. I know there was a lot of gnashing of teeth and rending of garments throughout the Discord for the many people who left him out on that big day. All right, Elizabeth, I want to hear about your interpretation of the game and who did you select for this roster percentage swap?
Absolutely. I didn't go too far off the rules, but to be fair, as Lewis said, he gave me the title for a game and I was like, I get it, I'll play. And so for my roster swap, I did take this a little bit differently. Not too different, but I looked at Chris Kreider. He's 34% rostered. He's just back from an injury. He's only played a couple of games since returning. So I think that might be keeping people a little nervous about him. I also know that last year probably wasn't a great representation of everything he could do. So I get the hesitation, but if you look at the numbers right now, he's getting about just over 6 cupful fantasy points per game, which is pretty good. And to only be 34% rostered in Yahoo, that's pretty low for me, if you ask. He's scored a goal in both of his games since returning. He's playing on that top line with Leo Carlsson and Troy Terry. He's got power play 1. I really like this, and I think he's just lowly rostered because we have so many hesitations about Anaheim, but I'm jumping on the Anaheim bandwagon. Our short shifts buddies from last Thursday were talking about Kreider. I'm on it. Our big show talked about Leo Carlsson, so jumping on this Anaheim bandwagon to try to sell everybody that Chris Kreider should be higher. And when I say higher, I just mean like he should be higher than 34%. I personally would put him probably in that 50 to 60% range. But I just want to go back to these current cupful fantasy points for a second, because 6 cupful fantasy points puts him in the same range as your Michael Nyes, your Dawson Mercer, your Tage Thompson for the last month. I'm not saying he's going to be one of those at the end of the year. Please, nobody try to quote me on that. I'm not saying go 100% owned, but he should definitely be somebody you're looking at, especially on good weeks. Anaheim has really good schedules. So try not to overlook some of these players who maybe you have some reservations about, but they're going to play a really solid week for you. And like I said, I expect him to be closer to that 50 or 60% owned. So I took a quick peek around the league at who I thought in that 60 to 50% range, maybe probably should be a little bit lower in that 30 to 40. And I was kind of surprised that Mason McTavish is 60% owned when we have players like Troy Terry and Chris Kreider who are lower and playing on that line above. Very interesting dynamics there that just prove that sometimes the lines don't matter. We see what we want to see in the numbers. Mason McTavish has 8 points in 11 games played, but his last 30 days, he's only averaging about 4 cupful points per game. So you are getting an extra 2 if you have Kreider over McTavish. But like I said, he's also doing his own good thing on that second line. He's playing with Carter Gauthier, and I wouldn't discount that at all. Like, that is a great line as well. He is second power play, so no shade there. Just somebody who I was surprised to see was above somebody who is playing that higher line and higher power play on the exact same team. And then last, I think it's time to say it. I think Zeev Buium. He's 63%. He's already dropped 7% in the last week on Yahoo, but it's just not coming together for him. His last 3 games, he had a total, and not average, this is total Kakavo points of 1.75. So if you had him last week, he's just not giving you anything. There's nothing to get excited about there. 0 points in the last 4 games. He's young. I don't mean to say bad things, and you probably drafted him expecting a lot and hoping like that it would pay off. I just don't think it is. I think the experiment's kind of over, and I think it's time to move on from him and go with somebody who maybe has a little bit more of that foundation and that floor, like a Chris Kreider.
Now, to his credit, Zeev did put up a goal today from the second power play, but yeah, as you say, that is not a great opportunity. And when Jared Spurgeon, who never does anything with that time, as I believe Brian said on Sunday, is replacing you, it's like just sort of admitting that, we'll try this guy who never does anything instead of you who was not doing anything. It's like, all right, yeah, message received. And, maybe he makes his way back, as Elon suggested. But yeah, I think a lot of with these rookie defensemen, people were buying a lottery ticket. And if you bought the lottery ticket and you scratched it off and it said Matthew Schaefer underneath, then you are crushing people. And if you got the Zeev one or the Rinzel one, you're a little more disappointed. And that's how it goes when you're buying those lotto tickets. So I think it makes sense that it happened that way. And congrats to the Schaefer owners. You're never going to draft him as low as you did this time ever again. So enjoy it while it lasts. That's some great value. One last thing that I thought you said that was very smart was you were talking about, shifting our expectations. I do think that especially when you've played for a long time, you can really fall into, these routines in your habits of mind where you think about, Anaheim and you're like, no, I don't want to think about it. I don't want to touch it. If you're over here on Eastern time, you're like, I don't want to be wondering about my team that late into the evening. Like, it's just not. But you really do want to be, if you can be nimble, if you can adjust your way of thinking, if you can adjust these patterns of mind, you don't want to be thinking about, Anaheim is a wasteland of offense, at least not right now. And I know we've seen little blips before, where we've seen Troy Terry really go off for a while and that sort of thing. This does feel a little bit different. This kind of feels like the arrival of the youngins and the chemistry that they have together really starting to pay off. So, it may turn out to be illusionary. As of right now, like you said you're on the bandwagon. I feel like this feels like a different Anaheim offense than we've seen before. And it's very exciting.
It is. I mean, it's hard not to get excited. You see these young guys who have worked at it for the last few years and it's starting to pay off. And then you throw in a couple of these veterans who can kind of guide them through some of these tougher times. And I really like a team that is balancing that. And that's saying a lot when you're cheering for the team that has the oldest average age or something like that, they say. But I like it. I want to see these young guys really shine, but don't forget about those other guys who have a good floor. And this is a reminder year round, right? Like, think about it when you're drafting too. People tend to overlook the toys that aren't as flashy anymore. So, yeah.
That's right. You gotta just make sure that you are thinking clearly and not giving into your biases. Well, thanks so much, everybody, for joining us. We rambled a little bit here. We had some nice, tight episodes. This one was a little bit more of a long shift. I think about 10 minutes ago, the coach was yelling at us to come back to the bench, and we were acting like we couldn't hear. But thanks for hanging out with us. We had some technical difficulties that threw a wrench into things, so we're a little looser tonight than maybe we have been in the past. But if you enjoyed the show, please, of course, subscribe. You can write us a review. You can, of course, join the Keeping Karlsson Patreon group at keepingkarlsson.com/patron, where super supporters receive ad-free episodes, and all members can interact with Brian, Elon, the Short Shifts crew, and hundreds of other talented fantasy managers on our active Discord server. Of course, you can you can join the wait list to take over a cupful team if the manager decides that they have some other things that they would rather be doing. Get a little bit of practice in there. Just chat with everybody. It is super fun. Help you kick your friends' butts in your home league, and then you'll want to come to Cupful because it's where the challenge is. That's what has happened to me, and I believe has happened to a lot of other people. You can check out GameDayTweets.com if you want to level up those fantasy skills, get all the best information from Twitter, carefully curated from respected sources by Elon and Shams. We also have some other great sites that we use. Let's start with Frozen Tools and Dobber Hockey celebrating their 20th. I first learned about keeping Karlsson over on the right-hand side column on a Dobber Hockey website after I started reading the ramblings to start wailing on my friends like I was talking about before. So congratulations on 20 years, Dobber. Frozen Tools is awesome. I use it more than anything other than Game Day Tweets. And of course, Yahoo and Natural Stat Trick are our friends as well. Intro and outro music created by Pat Roach. And until we see you next time, play smart and keep your shifts short. Shorter than this one, for sure. Good night, everybody.